How about AE zone? Is that?
You won't be able to do breakaway walls. Okay. Well, good question. Please, if you have a buyer that's looking at spaces that's enclosed, the crawl space is enclosed, it can be a problem with the flood policy. Make sure you get a quote before you make an offer on that house. Okay. All right, so here's some of the rate changes that are going on. V-zones, the pre-firm rates are going to go up 11%. The post-firm rates are going to go up 11%, and the pre-firm rates are going to go up 7%. The A zones, you'll see it's in here. I actually have a copy of this for everybody. Those are online.
So it's just 17%.
Yeah.
Once, or I heard it was like 11 or like 13.
What the language that they're using is until adequate rates are realized. So that's federalese to mean ongoing. There is no limit. The 25% I talked about before, they say until adequate rates are reached. So in 4 years, they're going to have 100% rate increase. So this breaks it down based on the actual zone. The A1 through 30 and the AEs are going to go up 6%. The pre-firm AEs are going to go up 16%. Obviously, you see that anything pre-firm is going to go up more than anything else because they've been getting subsidized all these years. Okay? Anything unnumbered A zone is going to go up 8%.
So basically, Wally, you're saying 17% or whatever percent per year until they reach the right.
17% of your current premium?
Above the current premium.
Repeat that. So.
Okay.
Yeah, 17% above the current premium. X zones, in a preferred risk policy, are to increase an average of just 1%, 93% for anybody that had an eligible extension. That very rare that even happens. Let's see.
I mean, say you're paying $2,000 a year right now for a flood insurance. So basically, probably looking in the next 5 years paying another $2,000, right?
That would probably be pretty safe to say.
That's kind of what I've been saying, telling people.
Yeah. And I would use this actual verbiage. I would take this, a copy of this, and give it to clients that are buying in a flood zone, because it's going to actually give pretty detailed information as to what the changes are going to be and the increases are. Also note that they're no longer going to allow a 30-day grace period. So, but if somebody is buying a house that didn't have a flood policy, or they're refinancing a house that didn't have a flood policy, the mortgage company's going to say, well, we were going to require a flood policy for this house. They used to waive the 30-day waiting period. There's a 30-day waiting period for all flood policies. They usually waive that, but that's stopped. So I imagine what may happen there is you may have some forced placement going on for the first 30 days, which is expensive. I haven't talked to the mortgage folks about that, but since they did away with that 30-day grace period, there's going to be some problems, I would think, unless the bank's just going to say, we'll take the risk for 30 days, and then you get it in place on the 31st day.
So if the agents are selling a house today, and if the house had flood insurance on it before, then there's no 30-day waiting period? If it did not have flood insurance, there is a 30-day waiting period? Would you explain that?
Yeah. The scenario I was talking about is somebody who is refinancing, for example, and the bank is going to require them to get a flood policy that's not enforced right now. Because they didn't have a policy enforced, they're not going to allow them to have a 30-day waiting period. But yeah, if they're buying a house, changing the title of the house, they're going to allow them to waive the 30-day waiting period to get the policy enforced immediately.
At closing, as long as it's done at closing.
Yes. Yes. Introduction of the reserve fund to try to stave off any big losses in the future. There's what I'm talking about, the elimination of the no waiting period. Applies to new applicants when the lender determines that a loan or building in a special flood hazard area requires insurance that it does not have. So sometimes you'll see people that have paid off their mortgage and they're in a flood zone and they don't have a flood insurance policy. So they may want to get a refinance or something, or for some reason need some money that they may have to have a policy in place. That 30-day waiting period is no longer waived. Also talks about January 1st to 14th premium for non-principal, non-primary residences are going to go up 25%. So somebody buying secondary houses, again, they're going to immediately get a 25% rate increase in their flood policy. So that's all I have, unless there's any other questions. Again, I do have copies of this detailed information, and Mo and Liz can send out these slides. They're in PDFs, so they're easy to download.
So everybody's getting a 25% increase.
Yeah.
And the pre-firms are getting a 17 and 11 or whatever. I think it says.
Pre-firms is actually going to get a 25% the first year.
Yeah, that's October 13th.
Yeah, we're talking about different flood zones. The A's and the B's have the different rates, rate increases based on where they are. The pre-firms at renewal, anybody who buys a pre-firm house at the next renewal, even if you assume the policy, at the next renewal, there's going to be a 25% rate increase. The first renewal. Anything pre-firm.
1974 is 17, or below is 17, 75 above is 11.
Right. Depending on the zone.
Now why would 75 and above only be 11 and before be?
Because they have been getting subsidies. They should be paying a lot more, and they've been getting subsidies. So they're trying to make up for those subsidies that they're getting. Because they're built below the floodplain. Most of those are built below the floodplain.
Right.
They're a higher risk.
Right.
Anything that's pre-firm was built without building code. Some of them may be on slabs.
Right.
Would you also address, I know there's some confusion about the different zones and the numbers that go with them? Whether the numbers making a difference or not make a difference?
In the rating plan, they make some difference in which areas that they're.
Like is a 12 better than a 14?
I believe
or
they
is a 14 better than a 12?
Yeah, they classify all of them for the rate increase the same. Let's look at it here. In an A zone, post-firm A1 through 30, in A's will get a 6%. All AEs in a pre-firm will get a 16%.
This is throwing all the numbers in the same category.
Because it don't matter. It doesn't matter.
But just a curious question. Okay, yeah, I guess it doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
All that A and AE stuff is for flood. It's not for the other insurance, right?
Right.
Okay, so it
And
just
so
doesn't
what
matter.
did you say?
All the A and the AE is just for flood. It's not for the other insurance, so it no longer. I guess it no longer matters anymore. If you got a number,
Well,
you're
what does matter if it's in an A, it's in a lower risk area than a V. Means velocity, high velocity, coastal, high velocity. There's different rules for a V. So a V is a higher risk. Most of Isle of Palm, Sullivan's Island is in a V zone. Most of it. Rarely you're going to see an A in there. And that flood insurance will be higher because it's a higher risk, obviously.
No, actually, most of it's an A zone.
Most of what?
Isle of Palms is A zone. Just the beachfront is kind of B.
Yeah, we see mostly V's.
Really? Because I'm an A. You're an A. Probably not most of it. We're just we haven't figured out the middle.
It'd be crazy for anything on Isle of Palms not to be in the big zone. It seemed to be.
Yeah.
You got a question?
I did. As far as like getting coverage, I know like, for example, I have a friend who's in insurance.
Yes.
And his company is essentially telling them that they're no longer allowed to write flood insurance, or at least they're making it very difficult. It's almost like they're creating a moratorium on it. And so it's getting harder to find someone to even write a policy. How easy is it for someone to just assume, say, the seller's policy versus having to seek out their own new one?
Yeah, she's hearing that some companies are no longer writing flood insurance and it's hard to get. I wish you would spread that rumor because I hope that's true, but we don't have a problem writing policies.
Okay.
But assuming a policy is really not that hard. We just need to sign off on, from the client and the other insurance company to assume the policy.
It's pretty easily
Yeah,
done.
it's fairly easily done. It's very common. I would say, again, in this day and time, assume them if you can. If not, writing a new one is going to immediately start with a higher rate instead of waiting to the renewal. But we don't have a problem writing them now. What some companies are tired of doing because it's a lot of work and there's a lot of rules involved and they have a lot of problems with them. Some companies don't believe in writing the wind and hail pool, for example, because it's just too much trouble and too much risk and they don't feel like doing it. But I will tell you, my staff is very well versed in flood insurance and we write flood policies every day.
I would be be a word of caution to you guys, if you are doing the assumption, just as Wally said earlier, you make sure that your people understand that that rate's gonna go up.
It is going to go up.
So,
Yeah.
Wally, it just, back to that number thing,
Yep.
if it says like AE 14, does that mean the bottom floor of the first floor has to be above 14 feet? Or?
No, I don't,
What does
no.
that number mean?
We're not really sure, they've never really given us that information, that detail.
Okay.
The elevation certificate tells you what the base flood in that neighborhood is. So you have to have an elevation to see that, whether it's 6 feet or whatever. And then, the building code in the area will tell you how high above that it has to be, but again, as an insurance company, the higher it is away from that 6 foot, that's basically the base flood, the cheaper the rate's gonna be. And some people choose to go, I don't know what the building code is in an area above the base flood. Let's say it's 6 foot is the base flood, and you have to be 4 foot above it. Well, if somebody builds at 5 foot, it's going to be cheaper. They do it better than the building code. But that's our biggest reason in these pre-firm areas is that you may go to a neighborhood and it's an older houses and they are actually below base flood. Pretty much most of the houses that were built, in downtown Charleston are below base flood area. Every once in a while you'll see an elevated house in downtown Charleston. But most of them are elevated, but not greatly elevated. Almost all of those are below base flood. So they're the highest risk, and they're really going to get hard with these rate increases. Yes?
With new construction, at what point can you get a quote for flood insurance?
For flood insurance, once I get the elevation certificate, but you can't get the elevation certificate until the bottom of the first living space is completed.
At least framed in, I guess.
Right.
What, is it new construction covered under a policy until it's built, or I always thought it was covered under something?
There's a builder's risk policy.
Builder's risk policy,
Yeah.
yeah.
But she's trying to get an idea what that flood policy is
Right,
going to be for a buyer.
Right.
And it always goes to the bottom of the floor.
Bottom of the first living area.
So if you get so if the floor is this thick, it's the bottom of it.
The bottom of the first living area. Mr. Little asked how much of Mount Pleasant is in a flood zone. I've never really seen figures on that because neighborhoods are popping up all over the place, but we see probably 70% of what we see with Mount Pleasant addresses are in some kind of floodplain. Yeah. And then maybe because we're seeing newer developments and most of those are getting more into the floodplains. And keep in mind, you don't know, if you're buying for yourself, you don't know if you're not in the floodplain today, it doesn't change tomorrow, because those things are changing from time to time. But again, FEMA's trying to get more money to prop up the floodplain, so they may, just like Joe Raleigh sometimes tries to do, they may incorporate some areas that were in the floodplain into the floodplain to get more money. So you don't know how those are changing, they're remapping all the time.
Okay, thanks.
All right.